Hello. If you've been following my YouTube channel, you'll have seen I've done some videos about Israel and the Middle East and the impact on some countries around the Middle East, in particular Lebanon and Jordan. And today I've got somebody from Middle East Witness who's got his own YouTube channel. Please give it a follow. It's Rojeh. He's going to tell us about his experiences he's a Jordanian Christian. So he's going to tell us about his experiences, his perspective on the Middle East, and what he's been doing to sort of try and bring people together and end conflict in that area, and what hope there is for the future. So hopefully we're going to end on a positive, an uplifting note, which we kind of need, because there's not much positive and uplifting coming out of the Middle East these days. Rojeh, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me here. And yes, it's true. I lived in Israel, in Jordan, in the Middle East. Now I'm not in the Middle East at the moment. Because I was working for peace in Israel amongst Arab and Israelis. But it's not as easy as I thought. And it's make my life really hard due to this. I also studied conflict resolution in Israel, and now I'm doing a PhD. I'm trying to study about social science and journalism. There are many aspects of why peace in the Middle East won't happen. And
you think it's not going to happen? So
unless...
I was wrong to say we might have a positive spin. Do you think the problems, the internecine conflicts, are just too intractable? Because I think this is something people in the West don't really get a grip on, because we see our countries as just banal economic platforms that anybody from anywhere in the world can come to, and we're so far in the West over the last 30 years we've been big fans of multiculturalism, whereas in the Middle East, I guess there's cultures don't mix as easily. That's a obvious thing to say.
Even Muslim groups together don't mix. Shia and Sunni are fighting, and not even I think it's ridiculous if someone believes in Islam completely fully and you want to bring him to a Western country, it's completely nonsense, because they will never integrate. This is my short answer.
Wow.
If you, I don't know, many reasons. You want to teach them how to treat women, because it's very different. The way they see women, the way they see religion, the way they see humans as infidels if they believe in Islam. And this is the main reason why Middle East will never see peace, due to Islam. This is the short answer. There is more to it, but this is the short one-word answer. I can explain about it even more. I can speak for hours about this, but the thing is, I think, I lived in Europe, and I can see that the problem that when you bring them in the beginning as small groups, they try their best not to show you the real face of Islam. When you bring this huge many people, then they feel more comfortable to act the way they are.
Which I guess we're starting to see a bit of in Britain, because certainly the recent local elections, we had Muslim candidates being elected, on purely sort of Muslim issues. So the war in Gaza, and shouting Allah Akbar when they were elected, and also there's now political organisations such as the Muslim Vote, which they recently tweeted they deleted the tweet, but they've supported some pretty outrageously anti-Semitic and sectarian candidates, but they've also tweeted saying, this is a 25-year war. We're here for this 25-year, sort of takeover. So it's not the most reassuring thing. They realised that they'd said the quiet part out loud, and they deleted the tweet. But yeah, so that sort of meshes with what you're suggesting, is because I've noticed in the West, people talk about Israel and Christianity and the West as colonizers, but then if you look at the Middle East, it all seems to be Muslim, and
exactly.
I'm pretty sure it started off as a different religion,
Yes.
seen as Islam's the most recent religion out of Christianity, Judaism and Islam.
Yeah, also they colonized North Africa, and Middle East wasn't Muslim. Jordan, Syria, Lebanon till today is still more or less a Christian, but still now they are minority. But only 50 years ago, Christian were majority in Lebanon, whereas now they are minority. And remember, Lebanon was the only Christian country in Middle East, and in Israel you can be Christian, but Israel is not a Christian country, but at least you can be safe. But the thing is, I noticed like they want their countries like Saudi Arabia to be homogeneous, only people from the same race, the same faith, only Muslims. And at the same time, they don't want to see this in Europe or in UK. If UK people want to be homogeneous, they are white supremacists. They are like, these people are evil. They are like colonizers. And when the same thing happened in Muslim countries, like you don't see, they don't accept other cultures to integrate there. Like you can't just go there as a Westerner and try to force your values on a Muslim country. But vice versa for many immigrants from Muslim country, for them it's okay. Like, and you should adopt to our culture. It's not, I mean, which is very strange. I see these videos on YouTube where they're having in Norway, they bring guys for integrating courses about how to treat women, how not to sexually harass. And the guy was telling her, yeah, but you need to understand our culture as well. Like, but what? I was like, what? Like, you want the whole country to like integrate based on your own culture?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Like, for instance, I'm a Christian myself from Middle East. I was born in a Catholic family. Like, as a Christian minority, my life wasn't great there. They don't try to integrate with you as a Christian. They don't try to like to give you your full right as a Christian. But still, when they go to West, like they believe in liberalism when it's come to their sides.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess we saw this in Iran, where they sort of ally with the socialists to get into power. The Islamists marched side by side with the leftists, but then as soon as they were in power, the leftists, you know, all the ideas that the socialists had, you know, were put to one side, and in fact, a lot of them were executed. And so as a Christian, you grew up in Jordan. I mean, what was it like living in Jordan as a Christian?
As a Christian, I grew up there. Like partially, I grew up also in a Christian school, so it wasn't. I was a little bit oblivious about it because I was Christian, kind of living in enclave, more or less. Like not enclave like physically, but they always together in their own school, their own churches, their own neighborhood, their own clubs. Like it's always. But I never understood exactly why till I was 18. When I was 18, I went to see real life in Jordan. And I was surprised how much hate they have for Christians, like how much like discrimination and mocking, and they look at you as if you are like some alien coming from other planets, and the way like they also see Christian women in Muslim countries. Like, I noticed they look at them as like these are like sluts. They are women who are not dressing the proper way as they should. And I mean, if you know what I mean, the Islamic dress. And it's surprisingly like how. Yeah, surprising like how they judge these women, the way they dress, just because they're not putting like the tablecloth over their head or not dressing, and and they cover they're wearing t-shirt and the jeans, like which just regular clothes, not even something like just very regular, and this is like kind of it's constant like nonsense because you like. I mean, I don't know how to explain it because, like, the way you face these things as minority is really severe. But when you come here to, like, UK or in Europe, Canada, just name it, you notice that how they expect you to give them, like, special status, not only rights, special status. But if they believe in minority rights and so on, why they never fought for these minority rights in the Muslim countries?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
It's annoying. For me, it was annoying because when I was seeing, when I went to like Western country, when I was seeing what's happening, I mean, how they like. I was annoyed because many extreme left wingers, like the one who are like the walks and the one who is like taking to the far extreme. They kind of like surprisingly like they just started to. Tell me like how should I accept Islam and Muslims? and how beautiful is Islam, but what they know about Islam and what is it to live in a Muslim country and why they support Palestine. Like what? Like a very strange thing that Waki adopts blindly, and they never lived in Middle East, they never lived in Muslim country, and they still want to adopt this. And sometimes they speak with me as if they know better than me. I also lived in Israel, not only I also lived in Israel, and I know how is it there. But I speak the language, I speak Arabic, and I'm surprised by the arrogance they have, like how arrogant they can be to think they know more than I do. And the Muslims I saw here, not every single one, but the vast majority I met, I noticed that they kind of hide the real face they show me in the Middle East.
Right.
It's different because they say stuff about Islam. They show Islam as if it's more peaceful as ideology. They hide many things. They say Christianity and Islam are very similar. I was like, but how? Like, how is similar? Then if it's similar, then why you were hating Christians in Middle East? Why you don't like Christianity? Why you never accept Jesus?
Yeah, it's always baffled me that the left shill so hard for sort of radical Islam. Like, I mean, I can understand the message of tolerance and acceptance, but I think, you know, everybody or most people in the West have got tolerance and acceptance for people who come to the West who you know try and fit in and, you know, respect the sort of the culture that's given as a country, or, you know, a whole system of freedom and prosperity, and it's, you know, we can sort of understand that if we get rid of that, and if we have totalitarianism, or if we have some sort of radical theology governing the West, then we're going to lose all that freedom. We're going to lose all that prosperity, because, you know, economic prosperity can only really flourish under freedom. People have to be free to start what businesses they want and do what jobs they want to do. I mean, but it's always, because you'd think the sort of the radical right would perhaps be more aligned with Islamists, because you know, there's a lot of shared ideas about, you know, maybe you know, having extremely traditional values for women, you know, covering women up, controlling women, and also, you know, persecuting LGBTQ people. So I'm really surprised to see even Hillary Clinton, you know, and she'll even cover up for any bad things that are done by Muslims to Christians around the world. So there was the bombing attack on a church in Sri Lanka, and I believe it was Islamists, and she couldn't even describe the victims as Christians, even though they're obviously targeted because they were Christians. She described them as Easter worshippers, as if, you know, they're just randomly out there, you know, looking for some chocolate bunny rabbits, you know, nothing to do with the sectarian war here.
But I think you referred to 2019 attack, right?
Yeah, it was round about then, yeah.
Yeah, but like, I'm wondering, like, why she's doing this, like, because why they don't want to say that it was Islamists who attacked Christians in Sri Lanka, and why it's so hard to say this.
Yeah, it's always baffled me, and I mean, I guess the sort of reasoning behind it could be that, you know, they want to keep they've already people in the West have already brought a lot of Muslims over to the West, and they want to keep a lid on any discrimination against them, because it could get out of hand. There could be you know, sectarian violence. So they want to sort of quash any mention of that. You can see that with sort of anti-Islam campaigners. They get completely shut down. They get imprisoned for, you know, they get really scrutinized, and, you know, put in prison for things like you know, distributing stickers or something like that. And then you can see, I mean, just this week in Germany, there was a story about, there's a 15-year-old girl in a park in, I think it was Hamburg, and she was drinking with her friends, and the police came along, split them up. So she stumbled off drunk, got separated from her friends, and then 4 immigrants, males, discovered her, raped her, but also sent out messages on WhatsApp to their friends, and, you know, telling everybody, you know, we've got this 15-year-old girl here, come and rape her, which is similar to what the grooming gangs in Britain did. So she was obviously subjected to a horrific ordeal. They managed to recover, through DNA, they recovered semen from her and identified 9 men, linked 9 men through the semen samples. But I think 8 of the 9 avoided jail sentences. They were given suspended sentences, which, that's insane enough. But then obviously Germans were angry about this. So one of the men had his phone number released. It was doxed, and his phone number was released to the public. So a 20-year-old girl sent him a message, basically calling him a monster, and all the sort of natural reactions you'd imagine a 20-year-old girl would have to something like that. And she received he went to the police and said, I'm receiving racist hate crime, and she received a harsher prison sentence than any of the rapists. And it blows my mind. It seems so blatant and so twisted that any sort of sign of prejudice or intolerance, even when you're prejudiced against rape or intolerant of rape, that's still punished harder than the actual rape. Yeah. And we've seen judges in other cases say, well, I'm going to give him a lenient sentence because in his culture, this is seen as okay. And it's like, well, wait a minute here. This is not what we signed up for.
wait, like the judge said this?
Not in this specific case, but in previous cases, judges have said things like, well, I'm gonna give him a weaker sentence because he didn't know that you're not supposed to grab women or whatever it is. So yeah, there's plenty of cases documented of that sort of thing happening.
But I think everyone, I hope, I think it's something natural. People know it's wrong. Even if no one taught you it's wrong, it's wrong. It's something obvious. It's wrong. Does he? I don't know. And the judge is giving him less sentence. What? I don't know. But this is also in its own. If you give him a less sentence, that's mean it's racist, because that's mean there are certain races less intellectual than others. What?
I guess it reflects the whole current Western trend for social justice, where there are explicitly racist policies. So people will say, well, we're definitely just going to hire a black woman for this role because we need to address systemic inequities and historical pro-white hiring practices. So they're sort of fighting racism with more racism that's going the other way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right. It's because they treat them as if they can't do better, or that's all what they can do. But this is also humiliating for them as well to treat them this way. But when you try to give them courses to integrate about women, people say, oh, you stigmatize them as if they are not like other people. But then when they make the crime, you give them less sentence because they don't know better.
Yeah. and going back to Jordan, what's the sort of system of governance there? Because I know it's a monarchy,
yes.
Hashemite monarchy with King. Is it King Abdullah?
Yes, King Abdullah.
Yeah, King Abdullah, who's he seems quite westernized. Anytime I've seen him speaking, he speaks perfect English. And so it's obviously not an Islamic theocracy, but it is a Muslim country.
It's a Muslim country by law, but the king, his mother is English. You know this. His mother from England. His father was married to several wives. He was more Muslim, he was more into Islamic culture. But the king, and I believe, based on my personal observation, I noticed that they are more liberal than the rest of the country. The rest of the country, they want the country to be more Islamist. I feel without the royal family there, if it's overthrown by whatever reason, I think the country will be more like Afghanistan, and the Muslims wanted the majority there. I noticed they want Sharia law, and you can go to Pew Research Center and see yourself that the majority in the country in Jordan want Sharia laws, and only because of the king you find minority Christian 2% left.
That's interesting. So the king is actually the sort of bulwark against this sort of radical Islamic theocracy being set up. That's crazy. That's crazy. And is he making any steps to, I don't know, shut down madrasas, the Islamic faith schools? Is he doing anything to sort of stop? Because I know in Egypt, for example, they've the government there came under fire for basically executing a whole bunch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a Islamist organization that spreads across the Middle East and North Africa. But they were criticised for doing that. But I mean, I think they saw themselves as having to take radical steps to prevent the growth of Islamism in Egypt.
I think they dissolved the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan a few years ago. They dissolved them because they were against the country interests. The Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan were as if a country within a country, and they get a huge support from public. And I think maybe the majority were at least supporting their ideology, but I feel King Abdullah is more liberal than King Hussein, his father. Maybe because he studied in England, he was more like westernized than his father, King Hussein. But I'm not sure like how sincere is the king of fighting Islamists. Is it because would they allow them because if they support him, or he not allowing them because they're not supporting him? I'm not sure like where he stands from this, but like sometimes I feel even the king is afraid to fight Islamists. Sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes I feel he's trying his best not to say something wrong in public. Even the king is afraid from Islamists in Jordan.
Yeah, because he must be, especially with sort of military support for America and military support for Israel. I know a lot of Muslim countries around Israel actually helped when Iran sent drones and missiles towards it. So, defensive missiles were launched from, I believe, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure where else. But, because I'd imagine if you're, a Muslim in Jordan, you're not going to be happy that especially, as Jordan has, ties with the Palestinians, you're not going to be happy that that pro-Israel air defense missiles are being launched from your country.
That's true, because the majority in Jordan, maybe I think 60%, maybe 50, I don't know, they are Palestinians. I myself originally from Ramleh. I lived in Israel, but I'm the opposite of the majority because I'm more pro-Israel, because I know the Palestinians are using this narrative of the land and rights, but deep inside it's about Islam to take over the land.
Right.
I'm not saying because some people wondering, sometimes I criticize some ruling from Israel, but doesn't mean I'm not a pro-Israel. Israel is not the devil, but not an angel, but still I'm in favor of them more than Palestine. Even sometimes I might in my channel say stuff more balanced, but I don't support any of these groups, Palestinians resistance or terrorists who are fighting. Of course I don't support them, and I don't even support the narrative that the colonizers come from the West, because 60% of Israelis were from Middle East. They weren't from outside, and they need Israel to be safe in this hostile region. And in Jordan, many were protesting. I saw videos in Arabic. They calling the government Zionist government because they are not allowing them to open the borders and do jihad against the Jews. It was quite ridiculous, because they are calling them Zionists because the police are trying to stop the violent protest in Jordan. And many Palestinians weren't happy that even Jordanians I'm not happy about it. But the problem in Jordan, you have racism between Jordanian and Palestinians still today.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. So could you tell us more about that? Because I know that when was it, around about 1970, so there was a lot of Palestinian refugees. I think Jordan actually was essentially annexed the West Bank, so I guess those people would have become Jordanian citizens. And a lot of Palestinian refugees went into Jordan, but then actually fought against. First, they dragged Jordan into a war with Israel because they were still fighting Israel. So then the Jordanian army felt like it had to get involved and fight Israel too. And they also then turned around and fought to overthrow the Jordanian government and the Jordanian king, which is, it's a bit ungrateful when you consider that Jordan had offered refuge for these people.
Yeah, I know, because also remember, Jordan and Israel, they was reformed Jordan in 1946 and Israel in 1948, but they were kind of region. This is for the Jews, this is for Arabs, for Palestinians, for Jordanians, whoever. But the thing is, Jordan annexed, like occupied East Jerusalem and West Bank in 1948 in the war with Israel, when Israel established the country. And then you have like in 1967, when Arab countries again want to fight Israel for what's left from Israel, and then they lost, and Jordan lost East Jerusalem and West Bank, and these citizens were citizens of Jordan at that time, and many refugees went to Jordan, like what, millions. I mean, maybe now millions. I'm not sure. Maybe thousands at that time, because it wasn't a big population. And I remember, like, at that time, I don't remember, but I know at that time, and after 3 years, because the king, who was King Hussein, yeah, he was like, and the government were supporting the terrorists, the Fidaiyin, the so-called resistance, armed resistance in Jordan. They were in the borders with Israel. And they give them weapons, supporting them, and also I remember, like, maybe Belgium was supporting. There's other countries, maybe communism. I'm not sure who was supporting them, but they get support from other foreign countries.
And they're definitely getting support from the Muslim countries as well, like Saudi Arabia. I can't remember who else. I know Syria joined in with the the war against Israel when the Palestinian refugees dragged Jordan into that war.
Yeah, also they were Islamists, and not only Islamists. You have Palestinian communists who are fighting, more like atheist communists who are fighting, which is strange. We're fighting together. I'm not sure like how they could manage, but maybe because Islamists are okay in Islam to, if someone support you against someone, you can lie with them till you are strong enough. But like at that time in 1970, you meant Black September in 1970, when the Palestinians, the Fidaiyin, they called them the jihadists, they were fighting against the Jordanian government, and they were very close to overthrow King Hussein. And Syria they attack Jordan because they want to support Palestinians. Then Israel interfered and they stopped Syria from attack. I think Israel was the one who make the monarchy in Jordan to survive without.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so, because King Hussein was ready to flee the country. He even sent his kids or his relatives to Aqaba, the south of Jordan. So in case, because he was certain he will be overthrown if he will lose the war. Yeah. And then only by grace of God, Israel was just there to help him, and then the country was overthrown, and else it would have been Palestine today. But remember, they take Jordan and they will still need Israel. They're not gonna stop for Jordan. Even if they take Jordan in 1970, they still want to take Tel Aviv and Jerusalem.
Yeah. That's so interesting. The Jordanian government, they were at one point they're arming the Fedayeen, they're arming the Palestinian refugee army, and then the Palestinian refugee army was, I guess, using those weapons, just a little bit later, just a couple of years later, against the Jordanian government. And then Israel, who'd been fighting Jordan, was then helping the Jordanian monarchy. But it's the Middle East is just the maddest sort of it's like a pub brawl. It's like everybody's just fighting each other and constructing alliances all the time.
Yes, I don't remember a time where it was. No, I mean it was calm maybe at the 90s for a few years. What war at the 90s? There were nothing. Maybe there were war somewhere. I can't remember. But I remember when I was fifth grade, there were Iraqi wars. And after Iraqi wars, Syria, and before Iraqi, there was Lebanon. Yeah, Lebanon was fighting.
Of course. Yeah. That was from the 80s for 25 years.
Yeah, and then Intifada, the first Intifada, second Intifada, and they were about to do third Intifada, but it didn't work. But also remember, they support the Fidaiyin, the jihadists in Jordan. But what's happened then? The same story. Leftists, the extreme lefts in Europe, in the UK, supporting Islamists. They think if they support them, they will never turn against them. But the same story will happen if WOC keeps supporting Islamists and the migration of Islamists. The people who just because they arrived, they are welcome. I mean, they will turn against them. Do you think Islamists will accept LGBTQ?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've already. I mean, as I said, we've already seen this in Iran. Where the leftists marched with the Islamists to help them overthrow the Shah. And then as soon as the Islamists were in power, man, it's not like they have gay clubs in Tehran now. It's the opposite. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like they've got they hang gay people in the village square, and if they don't hang them, they force them to transition. I guess that's not too different to the West. We've sort of gone down that forced transition.
Yes, exactly. Yes, like UK 30 years ago, you don't have these issues. In 30 years ago in the UK in 1990, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we had Irish Republican terror, but the difference between Irish Republican terror, I think leftists always bring it up as an example of like, oh, well, we've got our own homegrown sectarian violence, but it's a different style. I mean, the Irish Republican Army, as brutal and as murderous as they were, they had specific and achievable political aims. So they weren't just motivated. They weren't trying to turn the whole world Irish. They weren't trying to establish some sort of Irish caliphate where everybody would have rainbows and get drunk. It was they had, and also there's a genuine history of British oppression of the Irish, and some of it was really brutal and unnecessary starvations being caused and things like that. So yeah, it's always brought up by left-wing people as like, oh, we've always had terrorism, so what's the problem now? But really, the terrorism we had before was very different to what we get now. And again, I'm surprised. There's almost like a sort of playbook when there's a terror attack in this country. Like the parents of the victims have to come out on TV 2 days later and say Islam's a religion of peace. It's mental. It's like clockwork. It's like there's that guy went on a stabbing spree, and 2 days later, it's like they're handed a script from the government that says like, listen, you can't be angry about this. This is and then they say we do not want this exploited by evil far right populists or whatever, and so then nobody's allowed to even be annoyed that some kids were killed by Islamists.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Like I noticed this thing always happens. It's a kind of pattern. Like if you noticed in last attack in Australia, when the Syrian guy, immigrant to Australia, he stabbed the priest. And if you know the story.
Yeah. And it was taken down from Twitter.
Yeah, and the next day, there's this mosque or Islamic center where saying we are worried about the retaliation and they're gonna attack us now. They always play victim so fast, like
It's like that Norm Macdonald, God rest his soul. He was a great comedian. He's dead now, unfortunately. But Norm Macdonald did just an absolute classic tweet. He said, my biggest fear is that if Islamic terrorists detonated a nuclear bomb in the United States, killing 50 million people, imagine the backlash against innocent Muslims. It's
I can't understand this.
I remember a comedian, unironically, like she's a left-wing comedian. She deleted the tweet straight away. I wish I'd screen grabbed it. But after one of the attacks in France, she tweeted saying, "Let's not forget the real victims." Here it's Muslim refugees, and it's like, no, the real victims are the people who died, the people who were gunned down at that pop concert. They're genuinely victims. Even if there's a backlash against refugees, they're not going to have it as bad as getting shot with 13 machine gun bullets and bleeding out on the floor of the Bataclan. You know what I mean? It's mental.
Yes, I know. I was surprised because what they care about, that we are worried about the attacks against us, and Islam is peaceful. They don't care about what's happening later. Also in France, when the Shishani refugee, asylum seeker in France, he killed a teacher for showing in a class pictures. Oh, he only showed the pictures, didn't even say anything.
Yeah.
And he was he stabbed the guy and he beheaded him in the streets. And then in Muslim countries, they don't care that there's a guy who was killed. I remember in Jordan, no one cared there's a guy you killed. They both, please don't insult Muhammad. But you don't care that someone died. You care about Muhammad who died already. So. And what do you mean? Don't insult Muhammad. Like you don't insult someone who's dead. Like someone is dead, you don't insult him. But the one who died because of this, no one really spoke about this.
It's interesting, yeah. I remember that happening, and also it was because I guess a lot of people in Britain associate Islam with Pakistan or the Middle East, but that was somebody from I think the Caucasus in Russia, so Dagestan or somewhere like that. So it's interesting that with even though I think in the West we think of Islam as just being Saudi Arabia and places around there. It's right across the world. And when I went to Malaysia to perform comedy, my mate had opened a comedy club. He's half Muslim. He'd opened a comedy club in Kuala Lumpur. And when I was there, it seemed very liberal and tolerant. Like you see people with the headscarves and stuff, but it all seemed pretty cool. His comedy club was shut down by Malaysian morality police. So everywhere that gets Islam, that becomes more, the Islam then goes into politics and becomes more part of the power structure. Then you get morality police, and now I think we're going to see the start of the sort of the restrictions on freedom in Malaysia. That's going to mean the economy and everything gets affected, because you can't. I mean, that's his business shut down, and you can't run businesses if you can't be free.
But also, remember that Malaysia and Turkey is considered one of the most liberal Muslim country in the world.
Yeah.
Number one. And this is Malaysia, the most liberal Muslim country. Imagine somewhere like Somalia or Sudan or Jordan, or Syria. Or Saudi Arabia. I mean, this is the thing. This is why it's strange, because imagine that in Islam it's not just a religion, it's totalitarian regime. It's it has to be into politics. It has to be like a ruling system, not just a fate. It's not individual fates as a Christianity. It's a fate where you have to, everyone should follow, even if you don't like it. You have to show at least that you are following in public, at least.
Yeah.
Because for instance, in Jordan during Ramadan, even if you're a Christian in Jordan, they close the restaurants. No one allowed to eat in the street in public. If you go as a Christian, you drink water in the street, you might be beaten up, you might be in jail. This is in Jordan.
Whoa. That's mental.
Yes, in Ramadan you can't eat in public. And if you eat, people wow, you are lucky not to get hurted, or you might.
So this is during Ramadan or whatever, when everybody fasts from dawn till dusk.
They want you to fast with them in public. At least if you're a Christian, not fasting, but you have to show that you're fasting in public.
Yeah. So hide your Mars bar.
Yeah, and they pretend it's not about this. It's about our emotions and feeling. When you're you hurt our emotions and we feel hungry. What?
And that's so at odds with what's happening in the UK. I mean, there's a story we covered it the other night on Headliners, a show I do on GB News. It was about I think a legal. It was either a Muslim law society or some legal society had recommended that law firms stop having social events, after work events in pubs, because it discriminates against Muslims who go along, and even though you don't have to drink, they feel awkward, they feel left out because everybody else is drinking and they're not drinking, so that's discrimination. But I was sort of thinking, you wouldn't get a law society in Afghanistan saying, listen guys, we've got to, some of these Jews and Christians are feeling really discriminated against with all this mosque stuff. We've got to stop going to the mosque. It's a complete different. The West seems to revel in just trying to twist itself in knots to accommodate everyone and bending over as far as it can. Whereas that's not if we were in the minority, that's not how we would be treated.
But you're right. There are rules even in, I remember even in Europe, in one of the Ramadans, there's a guy from Egypt who was telling a French guy who was drinking water, "Oh, I'm fasting, why are you drinking?" And that was in Poland. I was you don't have Muslim community in Poland, very, very rare to see. And and it's kind of crazy how these people, when many of them, when they come here, they think that this country will adapt to them. What is this? Seriously? Imagine. I can understand logic. I also this kind of narrative, because I watch also what an Arabic news says. DW in Arabic, the German TV, is quite left. In Arabic, I noticed something. In Germany, when this Afghani guy stabbed this police officer and killed him, and there's an Arab German guy, Egyptian I think, he was speaking, but we don't know what this guy felt when he went there as an asylum seeker. He might feel prejudice, and he might feel this. That's why he stabbed. So okay, so I am an immigrant myself. Like if I feel alone and prejudice, I go stab someone. Why? What is this, Rojeh? I was like, mental. I feel lonely today, so let me find someone to stamp. What is this kind of logic? Like, this is nonsense. Like, imagine, like, because sometimes they say they feel lonely, they feel like it's like isolated from society. So, you know, I feel this many times, even as a Christian. So why don't I go out and beat someone and say Christ is risen and hit him? and say like he wasn't wearing a cross when he was walking the street, or he made a joke about Jesus. So that's why gonna beat someone else in the street in Europe because of this reason. But I mean, I can understand. Like, how is this solution for my immigration status?
Yeah, and in fact, that guy had he was an illegal immigrant who'd had his. As I understand it, his application for asylum rejected. It was rejected, I think, 8 years ago. But he'd stayed on illegally because nobody comes around to actually deport you. So, and then he was given. I think he was actually able to apply for permanent status to live because he'd had a child with a German citizen.
Yes, so basically he was allowed to stay legally as a citizen and to work and to have health insurance and just like any German, except voting. But okay.
But sometimes committing a terror attack just feels too good. And
but I was wondering, like, the guy is like mostly like a German, so why he feel frustrated from what?
Yeah. And have you have more people left Jordan? Like, do you think there's more of a sort of oppressive atmosphere for Jews and Christians and non-Muslims in Jordan, and people are actually leaving? Because I know millions of people have left Lebanon, and that's one of the things that's actually tilted the demographics of Lebanon in favor of Muslims. So many people leaving.
Yeah, I mean, but there are no Jews in Jordan since the country is established. No Jews. Right. There are Christians. They used to be in 1950 20%. Now 2% left.
Wow.
Yeah, less babies and more immigration out of the country.
Yeah.
Because they don't feel comfortable living in a Muslim country. The one who stayed, unfortunately, they became more like thinking like Muslims. I mean, with time, like if you save yourself, you can leave and you can be I think the number will goes down and down, less and less. But remember, Jordan, like let's say maybe 500 years ago, the Levant, not Jordan, because Jordan wasn't an important nation at that time. Let's say Damascus as an old city, Beirut, Jerusalem. Like maybe 500 years ago, the majority were Christians in this region.
Right. Yeah.
And now,
just 500 years time, which is, it sounds like a long time, but really that's, it's not a huge amount of time in the history of humanity.
Yes.
So in 500 years, it's gone from being a Christian area
complete
to
Muslim almost.
Yeah. So when the left in the West, when the left in Britain talk about, because they're really big on decolonization. They're kind of looking at the wrong.
I understand, but the people who go there say we want Sharia law in the country, Islam should dominate the country, but this is a form of colonization.
Yeah.
Why do you see it? Like also I can understand. Like sometimes I feel I meet Italians left wingers, the extreme side, very extreme, who were like saying, we need more immigrants, we need more, because we have to solve the issues in our country, so we have to bring more immigrants. I was wondering, why they have to be like from a country which can't integrate, like Afghanistan, or where like being from Syria, like why can't you bring them from Latin America, for instance? Why can't you bring people like who?
Yeah, well, I guess the trouble is that the whole immigration system is sort of geared against people coming from prosperous, civilized places because number one, like why would you want to leave a prosperous place if you're in Argentina or somewhere like that that's relatively modern and prosperous. There's less of a there's less of a pull to get into somewhere like Britain. And also if you are in South America, and the natural place to go would be America, would be the United States, because it's much better than Britain. But but also, I mean, I think our whole asylum system is sort of an anti-white immigration system, because you're not going to get sort of Westerners, and you're not going to get people from Japan or North or South Korea, places like that, applying for asylum. You're only going to get people applying for asylum from places that aren't very nice.
Also, like, if you want asylum seeker, in my opinion, the real asylum seekers from Middle East are either Christians, minority, like Jews has Israel, okay, they have a place to go. Like, but a Christian has no place to go in Middle East. Christians, ex-Muslims who are life in danger, atheists, I think, or Yazidis, if you know who Yazidis are, from Iraq. Like, these minorities are the only one, in my opinion, eligible to be asylum seeker only.
Yeah. And Yazidi, is that the sort of the more, because I know there's a sect of Islam that's more much more tolerant and integrated.
Not Muslims. They are different faith. The one who were in mountain in Iraq, ISIS want to eliminate them. They were killing them, ISIS.
Right.
And then in north of Sinjar mountains, and they're very small, a few thousands, and they escaped. Like, they couldn't stay because at least the Christian, they told them you can leave, but we're not gonna kill you, but leave. And they left. But the Yazidi, because in Islamic mindset, Christian and Jews are the people of the book, so you can't give them options. But these people are not people of the book, infidels. You have to kill them, no other option. So that's why they were killing them. That's why it was very hard to help them out at that time. And in 2014, I remember at that time, like, they were like targeting them in the mountains. Like, they had even the human right. They even bring helicopters to take them out of the mountains at that time. Yeah, it was. I mean, helicopters from the UN. I don't know who was helping them at that time. And some of them were forced to convert to Islam because they want to save their lives. But these people were the most unlucky because they have no options. And many of them went to Germany. These people are real asylum seekers, but when you bring their oppressors to be asylum seekers, it makes no sense. Like, Christians in the Middle East, yes, can be asylum seeker because their life is not as horrible. But when you bring, some believe in Islam, but this is exactly the problem in the Middle East. This is the problem. You are bringing the problem after they are not asylum seekers. Like, if you, what are you escaping from if you are Muslim in these countries?
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Muslim in Afghanistan, you should be delighted. You should be. I mean, this is the perfect place.
Yes, like, what are you afraid of? Like, I mean, unless if you are ex-Muslim, but the majority who believe in Islam, they actually believe in Islam for real, completely believe in Islam, not like the one who maybe the kind of Ahmadi who believe half of it and they might kill him. Okay, this is different. Not all of these Muslims. Okay, but the majority who believe in Islam completely as Islam it is. Why do you need to live to Europe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you think there's any lessons that Europe and the West could learn from, Jordan's experience with the Palestinians, and the experience of other countries such as Lebanon, which up until fairly recently was a majority Christian country and was also a prosperous, functioning country.
But also, like, in Jordan and Lebanon, it was a little different. I mean, no, it was majorly different because in Jordan, Palestinian and Jordanian were two Muslims fighting each other. Whereas in Lebanon, the Fidaiyin, the jihadist Palestinian, they went there and Saudi Arabia was supporting them at that time, because at that time Saudi Arabia wasn't as today trying to integrate. They were the extreme Wahhabi thing, and they told the Muslims who existed in Lebanon that you are a minority, why you allow Christian infidels to rule Lebanon? And it was sectarian fight. They were Muslim against fighting the Christian government. It was different because they got support from Muslim countries to fight Lebanon to make it a Muslim country. It was a fight against the Christian ruling. Whereas in Jordan was Muslims, not Muslims, like we say Palestinians want a land to have a land to fight Israel. because they feel like if they take over Jordan, they will have a country next to Israel fighting Israel directly.
Right, yeah. And they'll have all the power of that, that country to build an army.
Like Gaza, after 2005, when they gave them Gaza, they were hoping to get all of Jordan as a huge Gaza fighting Israel. Israel will be in hell of time.
Yeah. And do you think? I mean, what's the sort of attitude of Muslim countries to Palestinians? Because I know Muslim countries across the Middle East haven't stepped forward to take Palestinian refugees, and I understand that part of that is just because they feel that if the Palestinian refugees leave that land, they're not going to get that land back. But the other part of it is, they've seen what's happened to Lebanon and to Jordan and to Egypt as well when they took in large numbers of Palestinian refugees, and they don't want that destabilization. They don't want the grief.
You're referring to you mean these days, or you mean like back then?
Yeah, these days now, because I mean, there've been some calls for Palestinian refugees to be taken in the West, and calls for Palestinian refugees to be taken in across the Middle East, and the countries across the Middle East have said nope.
But that's the point. Like you should take the Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries, all the rich countries, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, UAE. I don't know. Like you have Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, like the one who caused the problem for them. You have to take them. You are a very, very rich country. You have money to support ISIS, but not to support refugees. Like, this thing's so annoying. Like, you have the ability, literally. You destroyed Syria, like Al Jazeera. Well, Al Jazeera is funded by Qatar. They supported Muslim Brotherhood. They didn't support ISIS publicly, but it's obvious what they were supporting. Embedded support, and they have all this money to send and to help jihadists. Even in the past with Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, they were helping. And then when they come to refugees, we can't help. We know. But they are your Muslim brothers. Help them.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense. And then Spain want to have them. And I don't think Spain as rich as Qatar. Yes. Like, what is Spain? And you were putting pressure on Poland and Eastern European countries to bring them in, but not Qatar? Like
I think Hungary is being fined something ridiculous, like €1 million a day or something for its.
Qatar.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, they've got the money. I mean, do you think money? The money in the Middle East, and we've seen, places like Dubai springing up over the past few decades that are really just based around just raw capitalist greed, and quite a lot of criminal money laundering as well. But we're seeing, in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia as well, now that it's trying to sort of liberalize, certainly economically liberalize, maybe not socially. But do you think that could save the Middle East? This could be the thing that reforms Islam, because the way I see it, the West is still in this sort of battle with Islam, but we're trying to see Islam's trying to turn the West Muslim, and the West is trying to turn Islam into sort of gay people who like lots of shopping. So we're in this battle to see if we can impose our Western decadence on them before they impose Islamic theocracy on us.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure now, because you have the right wing won the EU elections. Like, they took the most seats. You still have, the majority of the seats. Also, but I'm not sure. Like, do you think UK still want to have more refugees after all? You think they still want? I think
the UK will take in a lot of refugees and a lot of immigrants, but only because basically we're going to get a left wing government. We're going to be just about the only country in Europe that's going to be turning to the left, as the rest of Europe turns right and becomes a lot more sort of anti-immigrant. So the UK is going to turn left. So that means all the immigrants that aren't allowed, all the refugees that aren't allowed into Europe, will come to the UK instead. So there's going to be huge pressure on the UK, and we're going to have a government that's really sort of ideologically committed to taking in as much. It's a real diversity is strength government. So I think the next 5 years are going to be pretty. I think it's all going to. I can see that they're setting the stage for a horrific sectarian civil war in a decade or two. Yes. But yeah, I think the next 5 years for Britain are going to be brutal. I think Europe could have just put the brakes on in time.
Because also I noticed like many Europeans, they don't understand Islam, and they think they are like immune from what happened in Middle East. Yeah. They think it will never happen in Europe, but it's also like why not? Like if they are the majority, they want Sharia law, and if they've won the elections, let's say they are only 30% of population, there's possibility they won election in the future, not far future. Like and what you can say to them, no, you can't win the election. If you are in democracy, then they use democracy against you. I mean, only if they are 30%, they can win the elections. They don't have to be even more than this, because the other 50% will divide into other groups.
Yeah, that's true. So you can have, if you've got a really committed minority group, they can actually inflict real political and social change. It's more the sort of determination of that group, and I think that's the danger of having, because we've got political organisations in the UK like the Muslim Vote that are specifically getting Muslims to vote along, their sectarian lines, and which Christians tend to vote for whatever party, atheists vote for whatever party, Jews vote for whatever party, and I think this is we've sort of got a blind spot, and we don't realise how much radical change a really committed minority group can do. But it's going to be fun watching it happen.
It'll be fun like the UK, but you'll be in a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just before we go, because I know you've done work to sort of like reduce conflict or try and resolve conflict. I mean, do you think there's some light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think we could either reform Islam or integrate people better, or is there something that could happen to make the future more positive?
I mean, I don't think you can reform Islam, because Islam is very strict like verse and scripture. I was hoping when I was younger, like peace will happen. I was more like naive, more liberal. I don't know. Like I was like thinking like I will build the bridges through. I was doing playback at theater shows with my Israeli acting partner, and I was like, oh, we can work together. We're gonna make sense. But after working for peace, it's much more complicated issue. Like I think like if Islam wasn't part of the issue, maybe solution would be much easier. It would be much easier. There is of course there are other issues besides Islam, like they are fighting over the land, they are fighting over like more rights. But what I feel what caused them to be in this position, the Palestinians, is their insistence to fight for the sake of Allah against the Jews. It's what caused them to be pushed to this corner. But when Westerners see them like living in Gaza and they can't leave, even though they can leave actually, but the thing is like they don't understand what's caused them to be in this way. They think Israel just put them there because they are colonizers. Is it true that sometimes I might like not like the approach maybe Israel took in this war, but still like I know that but I doesn't mean I doesn't know that the problem started because of Islam. Even though like I mean I don't expect Israel to be an angel, but not the devil also, but like the thing is like I feel it's a very complicated issue, because like it's not just because what I was doing, I was trying to make them work together in a playback theater to show them that they are both humans, they have both needs, they both have emotions, they both have desire, so they can connect in a human level. It's true that they can connect. It's happened with my projects, it's happened, and I do it with high school, it's happened, that's true, that there were hate from both sides, and then it was reconciled and we built the bridges, because I noticed hate, and it was affected also in the Israeli side, because after the conflict of all of these years, I noticed that they also have this because I noticed they are both have it after this conflict, but I felt maybe it's easier to bring people from the Israeli side because they don't have this mindset of these are the infidels. At least not the religious Jewish, not the Haradim, because Haradim is, I don't know, I feel like they have their own religious people. But like there is like after this project happened, and people like were the same people who were like working together and became friends, when the conflict starts after like in May 2021, when for this house in Hayy Jarrah in Jerusalem, they stopped talking. Then again they are enemy. And now also I noticed that many of them, even the one who were like in the balance from the Palestinian side, I see their accounts on Facebook. They are taking to the extreme side of that all of Israel should be vanished, colonizers should be gone. So what I did, it's gone basically, and I felt like they will not polarize, but that's the issue. They're not polarizing their human aspects more than Islam, and even if they became, some of them who were like ex-Muslim or like more or less as like agnostic or modern, like not too Muslims, you will still find them like have this mentality embedded in them, and they can't see beyond it. Even though I noticed many ex-Muslims, they tend to support Israel because they are angry at Islam. But the war is religious. The war is religious. It's not about the land per se. It's not about the land because they give them Gaza and they're still fighting. It's not about the land. No, it's about. I would say it's about Islam. Okay, there are some Christian in the West Bank. That's true, but they are not. They are in the middle of the fight. They're not important in this conflict. Yeah.
Yeah. Why hasn't there been? Cause when Gaza flared up, when Hamas went in over the border in Gaza and slaughtered Israeli civilians. None of the, like, you'd expect things to flare up. I know there's obviously been some stuff happening in the West Bank, but it's really been quiet. Do people there, do the Palestinians there really see themselves as more like less threatened, or they've got less reason to sort of take up arms against Israel?
I know. Do you mean like why Palestinians didn't like say anything when 7th October happened? Or
no, but why there hasn't really been fighting between, or I mean, I know there's been some, but there hasn't been too much fighting between people in the West Bank and the IDF.
There were some in Jenin, some fighting, protests, but why not? I think because Gaza is supported by Hamas and West Bank is Fatah, so maybe they feel like the government in West Bank will not like them to protest, but they were protesting, they were fights, but why not too huge? Like, it's a good question. I haven't.
Well, I guess Fatah have traditionally been like much more reasonable than Hamas, and I mean, I think, I'm not totally sure, but did Fatah have control over Gaza as well? And then they had elections in 2000 and whenever it was, 2014, or they had elections a decade or so ago, and Hamas were elected in Gaza, and I think people were sort of a bit. It was a bit. Came a bit out of the blue. They didn't realise that people would, because obviously the thing with Hamas, because they've got that sort of tribal sectarian drum to bang, the violence and the vengeance. It's a sort of populist message, but in reality, it's not gonna be good for you. To be ruled by hardcore Islamists, you know what I mean? It's not going to be.
Yes,
if you like things like jobs and not getting bombed,
But Hamas also had a problem with Fatah. Fatah don't like Hamas. That's why Hamas in West Bank is existed, but not strong, because Fatah is taking control in Area A in West Bank, because there's Area A, B, and C. C is the Israeli area in West Bank, and B is like in between, and A is completely Fatah. But also, yes, Fatah is more tolerant than Hamas, but when you say comparing to Hamas, like anything can be tolerant. So, like anything. What, like if you compare KKK to Hamas, maybe they are what can be worse than Hamas? I can't even think of something like ISIS. ISIS can be maybe more or less.
Yeah, I mean,
almost similar, almost the same. What's the difference?
Both pretty brutal. And just finally, before we go, how do you think we could change people's opinions in the West? Because it just blows my mind that you've got these queers for Palestine. You've got these progressive left-wing people in the West who are now pretty much staunch supporters of Hamas. It's not, I see it on I see it on Instagram. Instagram's a big one because that's where all the women are, and they're all, Hamas are freedom fighters and all this sort of nonsense, which is, I mean, I can understand somebody who's born in Gaza, thinking that, who's been indoctrinated into it and has this, desire for vengeance against Israel or whatever. I can understand them thinking it. But if you grew up in, North London, it's like, what are you doing supporting Hamas? Hamas would subjugate you and kill you.
I'm surprised. Do you have people in UK who still says that Hamas is a freedom fighters?
Yeah. More now. Obviously the images of bombing in Gaza, they're emotive and they provoke strong. They're horrible to see. They provoke strong emotions in people. So I think because of that, people have come out and literally started shilling for Hamas, and on the protest marches as well. Chanting for Hamas, and these are, there's a lot of sort of just regular left-wing people. I'm not saying all left-wing people support Hamas at all. I think most people are quite sensible, even if they are left-wing. But yeah, there's definitely there's a sizable portion who shill for Hamas, who see they sort of see them as the Che Guevara. The Che Guevara poster that every student has, and it's like, yeah, but do you know what Che Guevara did, and do you know what he believed?
Oh gosh, but I can understand why the extreme lefts support Palestine. I don't understand, why is this in the UK?
Well, I think the extreme left support Palestine, they support Hamas, and they support the Islamic world because it's the same as in Iran. They see it as something that can help them destroy capitalism, can destroy the West. So they really see capitalism as the number one, the number one thing to be destroyed. People in the West have really been indoctrinated to see capitalism as the great evil, even though it's the one thing that's stopping them from dying in a ditch. It's weird, that people can be surrounded by prosperity and still believe that they're being held back and discriminated against by a system that's keeping them alive.
Oh, I see. Because I know this friends who are from Italy, he's communist and he's 25 years old. He's a young guy and he's very supporting Palestine. Because I was like, why? I can understand. What he knows about the conflict. He's concerned about the conflict more than me. And I was
did you manage to change his mind?
I mean, it's hard to change these people's mind because they don't listen. They very arrogant. When I talk to him, the arrogance they have is completely ooh brother, ooh no. Because they don't listen. They just start arguing and then they don't understand what you are saying. I don't know, and then they start they know that they will not know much as I do, so they start kind of change the topic, and sometimes I feel their support to Palestine is not because of Palestinians, it's something else. I feel they're supporting Palestine for their own agenda, the big communism and these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the anti-capitalism, anti-Western thing that drives all Western communists.
Yeah, what about Congo? They have problems now. Why not Sudan? Sudan is in a war. Why he chose this one? Because in his mind, Israel is capitalist, and this is capitalist power colonizing as what he believes, as what he brainwashed. Yeah. I think that's what he thinks, that he's fighting against capitalism, and they are oppressing these people because they are not under the capitalist regime. But I can understand. But in Eastern Europe, communism destroy Europe.
Communism's horrific. It's sort of for communism to work, everybody would have to behave completely altruistically at all times, which is ridiculous. Funnily enough, I worked on there's a conspiracy theorist called David Icke, and I worked on one of his shows as a dancer, just for a laugh. I'm not a dancer or anything, but this is 10 years ago, and so I met all the other people, and I'm a capitalist. Even then I was conservative, but it was interesting talking to them. There's a guy who came all the way from Italy, and he was telling us how we need to structure society, and we need to do away with all money, and people will just go and do the jobs that need to be done, and then people will just take what they need. And I don't think, for somebody to think that, I was like, so why is somebody going to work in the sewers? Why is somebody going to work in a salt mine? And he just turned around at me and said, because it's nice. because it's the right thing to do. And it's like, have you met people? Have you met people? Nobody's motivated to get out of bed in the morning to be like, I'm going to go to work because it's nice, because it's the right thing to do. No, we want money so we can buy shit. Otherwise, I'm staying in bed. So yeah, I mean, I just think most communists have never ever met a person.
But many of these people, like I noticed, like this guy. He was speaking like, yeah, the government should give us houses, free food, free things, like, but how? Like, where are they gonna bring the money from? Where? Like, who's gonna build these houses? Like, who's gonna build these things? Like, they think like it's very like in a way like unrealistic. Like, who's the government? It's us, people.
Yeah.
Who's the government? Like, you think they are aliens coming giving you money
from
nowhere?
And because the Communist Party, they think exactly how everybody thinks. They want the best for their children. So then, after a generation, communism just descends into this sort of feudal monarchy. Where, I mean, look at Kim Jong Un. It's handed down father to son, the leadership. So it's not in any way a sort of sharing of wealth and responsibility at all. It just becomes this feudal system. But yeah. But I guess we're getting a bit off topic from the Middle East there. But yeah, it seems to go hand in hand, communism and Islamism, and I guess they're both sort of totalitarian. I think a lot of Western leftists are weak. They don't have enough testosterone. They're weak. They're pussies. They know that they could be punched in the face and it would really hurt. So because they can't fight, they want the state to exert power over other people. They feel the state will protect them from like high testosterone chads. But also like I feel they have common things as they don't like Western culture. They also totalitarians, most of them, and they want central government. But the fact they are aligned together is still absurd that they align together. Yeah.
I think Islamists know how to use taqiyya and lie because I noticed when Muslims
and taqiyya is when you it's when you lie, but it's morally acceptable to lie under Islam if you're doing it to advance the cause of Islam.
Allowed to lie in Islam in 3 cases. If you lie about like if you want to have people are fighting and you are lying to one of them to make them like again to talk again, or if you're lying for your wife if you cheated. And also, it's allowed, yes.
Allowed. That's so funny. Oh my god.
And also, you're allowed to lie in a war, I guess. And taqiyya, when you lie to convert people to Islam, you're allowed to lie to convert. This is
also, I've noticed you're allowed to lie if you're selling a house. That's one thing I've noticed from my own personal experience of nearly buying a house off a Muslim guy.
Yes. Actually, yes. They lie when you get social system. They get also, yeah, that's true because they see they're allowed to steal non-Muslims, and this money, not your money, it's Allah money. This Allah land. Who are like this is the earth for Allah or Allah, not for who? Like you are just infidel. Yeah, I hear this a lot. Yes, I hear it a lot.
Okay, well, Rojeh, thanks so much for joining me. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you and getting your perspective on the Middle East and what's gonna happen in Britain over the next couple of decades.
Hopefully, people will wake up. But like in France and Italy, they voted for like Georgia Melon, and in France now Le Pen and the EU have. I mean, people like are kind of. Hopefully, in the UK will. I mean, why is it so hard? Just to stop this illegal immigration, and that's all.
Yeah.